Disclaimer: this is a student presentation using a hypothetical scenario for educational purposes. The presenter is a student at UAMS, not a representative of the agency named in the following slides. The information contained herein does not necessarily reflect the views of said agency. Hi, my name is Tyrone Gamble, and I'm an environmental health specialist for the Oklahoma State Department of Health. Today I'm here to talk to you, the residents of Phillips County, about mercury exposure and the possible adverse health effects that comes with it. Here is an overview of what my presentation will be about. First, I'm going to tell you about what mercury is and some of the common sources of mercury. Then I'm going to talk to you about the negative health effects of mercury and its risk factors. Finally, I'm going to talk to you about how mercury is regulated, prevention and safety guidelines for dealing with mercury, and what to do if exposed. Mercury is a naturally occurring chemical element and metal that can be found in air, water, and soil. Mercury exists in three forms. The first being elemental or metallic mercury, which is liquid and room temperature and found in some consumer products like thermometers, fluorescent bulbs, dental fillings, batteries, etc. It is also used in some mining and industrial processes. The second being inorganic mercury, which is formed when mercury combines with other elements such as sulfur or oxygen to form compounds or salts, and is found in some cosmetic cream outside of the United States. It can also be used in some industrial processes and in the making of other chemicals. Finally, organic mercury, or commonly known as methylmercury, is found in foods like fish and shellfish. It is the most toxic form of mercury, even though all forms of mercury are dangerous. You can be exposed to mercury in three ways. One, through eating fish or shellfish contaminated with methylmercury, swallowing releases of mercury from some dental fillings, or drinking contaminated water. Secondly, by breathing mercury vapors from spills, coal-fired power plants, and industry emissions. And third, by touching liquid mercury or products made with mercury. Mercury exposure can bring about a host of symptoms. Acute effects can include skin rashes, eye irritation, nausea and vomiting, diarrhea, loss of coordination, numbness, etc. Long-term effects of mercury can include brain and kidney damage, tremors, memory problems, changes in vision or hearing, and motor and cognitive issues in children. Chronic poisoning by methylmercury can lead to death. There are several risk factors for mercury, which include occupation, age, pregnancy, and lifestyle. Those most at risk for mercury exposure or poisoning are children under the age of 7 who are still developing, women who are pregnant or breastfeeding, women who are planning to become pregnant, individuals who consume a lot of fish over a long period of time, especially in areas with fish notices, and those who work in environments with mercury. Because mercury has a lot of negative health effects, federal and state agencies try to regulate mercury exposure. The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, deems any source of drinking water with less than 2 parts per billion of mercury as acceptable to consume. In the occupational setting, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, limits the amount of mercury in the air to 0.1 milligrams per cubic meter. Companies are required to monitor the air quality and report to OSHA. Anything above the mandated limits, companies must undergo a series of regulatory and cleanup protocols to maintain air quality and protect workers. One cause for concern for mercury exposure in Phillips County is Cedar Chemical Corporation in West Helena, Arkansas, which is one of 15 Superfund sites in Arkansas where a long-term response to clean up hazardous material contaminations is required. According to the Department of Environmental Quality, the surface soils and subsurface soils are contaminated with pesticides, volatile organics, and heavy metals, with mercury being one of the contaminants. This is cause for concern because it can contribute to groundwater contamination, which could pose a risk to human health and or the environment under various exposure scenarios like flooding. Other than that, there is no cause for concern of mercury in Phillips County. There are 20 bodies of water in Arkansas with fish advisories, but none are in Phillips County. To protect against and prevent mercury exposure or poisoning, a number of steps and considerations must be made. In terms of lifestyle, one must consider what kind of fish and how much fish to eat. The Department of Health and Game and Fish Commission recommends eating smaller fish and choosing fish like brim, buffalo, crappie, and farm or pond raised catfish. And if one decides to eat larger fish like largemouth bass or white bass, they should eat no more than 2 meals per month. In occupational settings, workers must wear personal protective equipment (PPE) to prevent skin and eye contact, follow proper disposal and recycling protocols. Companies are also required to measure mercury exposure in air and report to OSHA. In community settings, officials must monitor water contaminants in community drinking water systems and publish a yearly water quality report. The Department of Health and Game and Fish Commission also periodically collect fish samples to test mercury levels in local fish populations. If you feel as though you have been exposed to mercury, please go and see a doctor. Mercury poisoning is diagnosed with a physical exam and a blood and urine test. There you will be asked about symptoms and when they started. They will also ask you about your dietary choices and other lifestyle habits. At this point in time, there is no cure for mercury poisoning, so the best way to treat mercury poisoning is to stop your exposure to it. For example, if you eat a lot of mercury containing seafood, stop immediately. If exposure is linked to environment or workplace, you might need to take steps to remove yourself from the area to prevent further effects of poisoning. If mercury levels are too high, your doctor will have you do a chelation therapy, where chelating agents, which are a set of drugs, will help remove the metal from organs and help your body dispose of. Long term, you may need continuing treatment to manage the effects of mercury poisoning, such as neurological effects. In summation, there is a low risk for exposure in Phillips County. It's best to keep in mind the risk factors of mercury, which includes age, primarily young children, occupations like industrial workers, pregnancy, and lifestyle choices like how much fish you consume. If you have any concerns, contact your local health department and go see a doctor. Here are my references. Now I would like to open up the floor to any questions. If you have any further questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me or Contact a local representative at the Oklahoma Department of Health.